Hi, everyone. Is my mic working? Okay. All right. So even though it is not February, and it's definitely not February 14, we're here to talk about the most businessy topic of all, love. And just before I start and actually tell you anything, I want to show why this matters, right? Why do we care about fans? Why do we care that we have fans? Why do we even want them, right? It seems so frivolous in some ways, so soft and fuzzy, right? Very much not a B2B kind of topic. But can you please raise your hand if you've ever recommended a product, a service, or a business of any kind to somebody else just because you liked it? It doesn't have to be in B2B. All right. Now, keep your hand raised if you know that somebody else has made a purchase or paid money for something just because you recommended it. Look around the room. And this is why this matters. All right. So, yeah, to say a little bit more about myself, I am a B2B marketing, content, and communications consultant. But today I'm not going to be talking about any of the work that I've done for my clients. I'm going to tell you a love story. A love story between me and a B2B SaaS brand. So let's get started. Okay, why does this matter? We all know that B2B marketing has a bit of a problem right now. Budgets are down, budgets are much harder to get approved, right? There's some statistics over there. Gartner found that 75% of CMOs face pressure to cut MarTech spend and have fewer tools to actually operate their campaigns with. Furthermore, 71%, most CMOs lack the budget to properly execute on their marketing strategy. You could have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't have the budget, what are you going to do? You're not going to deliver results. Your bosses are going to be unhappy because you're not delivering results. You're going to be running around like a chicken with its head cut off, trying to figure out what to do, right? So it's a time to figure out something new, to try something maybe a little more creative, maybe a little bit more scrappy, because whether you're from a small startup or a large enterprise with a lot of budget, it doesn't hurt in an economy like this to figure out an approach that might be more scrappy, a little bit less resource intensive than running the typical ads, right? Or doing gigantic branding campaigns, or putting more and more into SEO that's getting harder and harder to get a return on investment from. Which means that we're going to talk about a pretty alternative strategy, which is fan-based marketing. So this is my fan-driven marketing flywheel. And because I'm a content professional, everything I do always starts with content. Also, I'm realizing that my timer is not going. Could we fix that? Thank you. But yeah, everything always starts with content, which means if you want to find fans, if you want to make fans, if you don't have any, start by communicating to them, just broadcasting out into the world. Put out something that's genuinely compelling, something that's different, something that would stand out, something that would make somebody remember you and actually share the content that you've made, right? Once you've made that compelling content, what should happen at some point is you're going to get fans, people who liked your content, hopefully people who are also customers and like your actual products and services, and they're going to be pretty easy to find. You just have to start looking for them, and you just have to start listening, because once people are fans of something you've done, they want to talk about it. They want to talk about it, they want to tell others about it, they want to share the things you've made, they want to share that they've liked it, and you can find them probably on social media, maybe in discussion boards, maybe somebody has actually sent you an email or said something on a sales call. Maybe there's somebody in customer support tickets that mentioned how much they love your content, right? You just have to open up that channel of communication and start listening to them and start figuring out who are these people that like the things that we do and what are they saying to us. Then, once you've started listening, you move on to step 3, which is turning that communication channel from, one direction, fans talking to you, the brand, you start talking back to them. You make that bidirectional. You make that a proper channel of communication because you're starting to build a relationship, right? And in B2B, building a relationship with your customers is so important. We have long sales cycles. We're trying to convince people to sign pretty large contracts, right? If you're selling software for $50,000, or if you're signing an enterprise deals that might be 6 or 7 figures, do you really want to treat that like a dirty one-night stand where you're trying to trick them into just signing with you as fast as possible and then you'll never see them again, and if they call, you're going to run away and pretend you changed your number and tell somebody else to pick up the phone? No. You're building a relationship. As my father-in-law told me, because I talk with my in-laws about business and marketing, as one does, when you depend on customers to pay you a lot of money, like in B2B, or to make more than one purchase, right? Not just coming to the drugstore and picking up like a lipstick and then never hearing about you again. If you want somebody to pay you more than once, you're not trying to get a date, you're building a marriage, a long-term marriage based on trust and open communication. And like in any marriage, you would want that in B2B. So you interact with your fans. Once you've interacted with them, you've made them feel like you're listening, you've made them feel heard, you've made them feel understood. That's when you take it to the next level, to get that emotional investment, to get them to actually really, really care about you. And you do that by promoting them. You do that by helping them. In B2B, all of your customers are other businesses, which means they have very similar needs to your own. You have a business that you want to promote, right? So do they, whether they work in a marketing function, in some other function. They have somebody they want to impress. They have skills they want to develop. They have the relationships that they want to build. So use that, right? Help them out however you can. Leverage the resources that you have. And I promise you, you have more resources to support your fans than you think. Then, once you've opened up those channels of communication, you're talking to them, your customers are talking to you, you're going to get a lot of feedback. And you should listen to it. It doesn't mean you have to do everything that everybody tells you to do, but every now and then you'll hear the same idea again and again and again. And if it aligns with your own strategic goals and objectives and you have the budget and resources to implement it, do it. Implement it for your product, implement it for your operations, and implement it into your content. You've listened to fans, maybe you've made a change. Announce that, talk about it. Make content that appeals to the things that your fans have talked about. Problems that they've talked about, problems that you've helped them solve. It could be a case study, it could be something informational, it could be something that's totally just meant to make them feel good, right? And if you do this right, the flywheel will keep going, right? It will start spinning because now you've opened all those channels, you know what people want, so you can make even more compelling content, which means you can find even more fans, which means it's easier to interact with them and help them out, which means it's going to be easier to get feedback and make more content. And on and on and on it goes. So, why does this matter? This sounds like a lot of work. I don't want to do it, right? It's confusing, it's weird, it's nebulous. You have to deal with people and emotions. Why should we invest into this instead of putting, more money into LinkedIn ads? Well, because you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised by how much you could get just by opening up your brand to serendipity and letting fans do things for you just because they want to. So I'm about to show you some examples from posts that were made not by me and not by a brand about this brand called SparkToro. It was started by this guy who's a bit of a celebrity in certain marketing circles. His name is Rand Fishkin. He was the founder of Moz. And SparkToro is a smaller company. It's newer. It's a little experimental. And because he's a celebrity, they don't have any problems getting people top of funnel. And they don't have any problem getting people to talk about him and, I guess, kind of the brand. But they've had a lot of trouble getting people talking about the product. People don't tag SparkToro, they tag the founder. People don't know what SparkToro does. But yet, even though they've been trying to figure this out for ages, and I just kind of popped up out of nowhere. I was not doing B2B marketing like this for a while. I'm pretty recent to it, to be honest. I posted some things that I made for SparkToro just because I wanted to. And these are posts that people have made about it. Every single one is mentioning me and mentioning the product and mentioning the guides. And I'm going to go back so you can see them. This is feedback that nobody paid for. LinkedIn posts that no budget was invested into. This brand did not pay me to do this. This brand did not pay these people to promote them. I didn't spend any budget to make the things that I made. I just made them because I wanted to in my free time. I also didn't do any ads. No budget was spent. Zero. Just goodwill and fan communication, and here you go. People just naturally wanting to talk about the brand. People just naturally wanting to post about it. I have clients coming in begging to get something like this. And yet SparkToro just got it handed on a silver platter because they encouraged people like me. So, why did this happen? Because I made a series of 5 guides. These things are 23,000 words long about their product. As you see, it starts with a love letter. And it starts with a love letter because I was talking to their founder randomly in February, and I said, oh, I want to write a blog post because people have been asking me about how to use their product. And then I sat down to write it, and just writing a guide didn't feel like enough. I felt like I had to share that it was a love letter. I had to share why I would do something like this. And as I started writing, it slowly turned into this monster of 5 pieces and 23,000 words and accidentally full feature documentation, which they didn't have before. Again, no budget, nobody asked me to do this. They didn't know that I would do this. It just happened because they opened themselves up to chance. And it's been wonderful, and I will tell you more about the results at the end. So, how do you actually get somewhere like this? Before we can learn how to make superfans, we have to figure out, what are they? What do they look like? Can anybody from the audience here tell me, what do you think of when you think of a really intense fan? What is a superfan? Where have you seen them? Are there any environments where you've seen really intense, really passionate fans of anything? Doesn't have to be in B2B. Where? Sports? What was the other one? Oh, yeah, sports. Yeah, sports in general, in fact. There you go. People dress up. People spend a lot of money to buy merch. People spend so much money to go to venues, right? Buy front row tickets. I was just talking to somebody who is one of our old friends who paid basically half of his month's salary to get front row seat tickets to a basketball game. And he was like, this is the best purchase I've ever made, right? So passionate. Any other examples? Music. Again, you're reading my mind. Yeah, rock stars. Pop stars, right? We've had stories about Ticketmaster crashing because Taylor Swift fans were like trying so hard to get tickets, right? And actually, the last time I've been to Boston, this is the second time I've ever been, I came here for a concert. We drove from Ithaca, where we lived back then, for a weekend. I took time off work, cut everything out because we wanted to see this band. Like, we bought tickets way in advance, and we stood for 10 hours in line. Right? I was wearing high heels about this high. My feet were dying. It was cold. It was the winter. And we were there in line of hundreds and hundreds of people just because we wanted to get to the front row, which we did, by the way. And it was totally worth it. So that's a superfan, right? And you can define it in many ways. There's a professor. His name is Dr. Aaron Ahuvia. He teaches at the University of Michigan, who I've spoken with recently. And he spent 30 years studying what he calls brand love. Right? Emotional, deep investment into brands. And he's been doing this on the B2C side for the most part, but I do think it applies to B2B as well. In fact, there was another talk yesterday, which was a panel with Sophia Agostina, who I think is in the audience. Oh, hi. Yeah, who mentioned that one of the bigger trends that we're seeing in B2B these days is a bit of a convergence of B2B and B2C marketing. So I do think there's a lot for us to learn. And so this professor who's been studying brand love in B2C marketing has found that when people love brands, some of the characteristics that they exhibit are perceiving quality of product or service, right? If they don't think your product is good, they're not going to love it. Then some attachment to their identity. So it becomes part of how they define themselves, whether it's in the workplace, as an individual, or it might be the whole company identifying with another brand, right? You have HubSpot brands, right? Like, there's companies that are like, I'm a HubSpot customer. There's Salesforce companies that talk all the time about being Salesforce customers, right? There's so many examples like that, and that's identity. Then there's perceived fear of loss, which is you might be afraid if you've invested so many resources and so much time into implementing a particular tool or product into your business. What if it gets phased out, right? What if they get acquired and it completely changes? What if their priorities change and they stop featuring your plan, or like they remove and sunset the features that you depended on? Like, you are afraid. There's this fear of a breakup almost, right? But in a business world. And the last one that you get from all of that is loyalty. People become really loyal. There's this assumption in B2B that people churn, for no reason at all, right? Oh, if their budget gets cut, if your competitor comes out with a better product, everybody is going to churn and leave you, right? Which is not true. Because when people have invested so much time and money and energy and emotional connection to your brand, they're not going to want to churn. Even if your features become worse than your competitors to a certain degree, people are going to wait for a long time before they leave you. They're going to keep giving you second and third chances. Don't you want that for your brand? So those are superfans. And next, this is how we would actually implement it. There are 4 quadrants here. If you see, the y-axis is emotional resonance, like how much emotional investment is there that you're creating, right? How much are you engaging them on an emotional rather than just an intellectual level? And then on the x-axis, you have, are you talking to fans individually? So you're talking to one person or one brand at a time? Or are you talking one to many, from your brand to many customers or many brands at once? And this is a mix that I think every company should do some level of every single one of these. The exact mix will depend on your brand, it will depend on the campaigns you're running, your resources, etc. So we have the things that are more common, right? Useful content, which I see all the time. Low emotional resonance, you're speaking one-to-many, which is how-tos, tutorials, kind of like product documentation could be that, or just general, tips for a business, or like how do you do something, right? The things you Google a lot most of the time. Then you have the standard fan communications where customer support falls into this, right? Maybe you would like posts from customers on social media. You might even repost them. You might do like short replies if somebody reaches out, right? You might talk to somebody at a conference. And then on the other end, you have stuff that's a little harder to do and requires more of your soul almost, which would be fan advocacy. You're taking it further than just communicating with fans. You're not communicating with them. You're also advocating for them, right? They're advocates for your brand, so you advocate back to them as well, right? You could do an ambassador program that gives them some special perks, exclusive access, beta features, maybe access to your network or another network of other fans and customers. You could do something like actually thoughtful shout-outs that make people go to their websites and check out their businesses and build their own brands, right? Both personal and as a business. You could feature them on your webinar, on your conference. Inbound is happening here in Boston pretty shortly, and that's HubSpot's way of doing fan advocacy. I spoke with Christina Garnett, who's their head of customer and like fan marketing, right? And she said that almost everything they do is there to help their fans because the fans help them so much, right? Their fans make them, like they have customers that have made them hundreds of thousands of dollars just by promoting them and talking about them. So they invest back, right? They invest back to try to help them make more money in their businesses because the more successful HubSpot's customers become, the more successful HubSpot becomes, right? And then the last one is emotional content or connective content, which is kind of the most nebulous one, but you're starting to build a bit of a parasocial relationship essentially, right? Think about influencers, right? B2B or B2C. Think about the celebrities, the rock bands. There's this sense of tying identity together. There's this sense of they care about me, they understand me, they get me. And that often means being a little bit vulnerable, a little bit revealing, right? Maybe showing the less pretty sides of your business to your fans. It could be public content, which some brands do. It could be gated content. But it's something that shows the inside of your brand, as it really is, right? And makes them feel like they know you. So now I want to go through this with SparkToro, which I did those guides for, and show you how they've done things within every single one of these quadrants and why they made me fall in love with them. So the first one's useful content, probably the most obvious to most people in B2B, right? They have webinars that they do where they teach us how to do marketing. They've done a lot of blog posts that have been extremely useful that I send to clients all the time. They post on LinkedIn, videos, little tutorials. This is how you do marketing. This is how you get better at using our product. This is how you get better at just doing your job in general. This is how you should think about marketing questions. So that was what got me in initially, right? I was still trying to learn more things about B2B content marketing in particular because I didn't do content marketing before. And I started learning things. And to this day, like so many things I do in my work are things that I picked up from here. If you get on a client call with me, I'll probably mention zero-click content to you at some point, which is something I picked up from them. So I started kind of embedding and referencing, going back and sending links to people. So that was kind of the beginning of the relationship. Then, there you go. Fan communications. One of the reasons SparkToro in particular stood out to me so much is I was trying out a lot of brands. I was trying out a lot of SaaS products. I was starting to interact with a bunch of companies back then. And I would tweet at them, I'd post at them on LinkedIn, I'd attend their webinars. And most of them didn't talk to me, but SparkToro did. Their founder talked to me, who's Ran Fishkin. Their VP of marketing, Amanda Natividad, would talk to me as well. Their customer support person and the other co-founder, Casey Henry, would send me really long emails, like actually caring about what I had to say and actual product opinions, and would sometimes give me little sneak peeks as to how something worked. So just seeing these things encouraged me, right? The more they talked to me, the more I wanted to talk to them back because I didn't feel like I was talking to a wall. I felt like I was talking to actual people who cared about me as a customer, who were invested in what I had to say. So the more they did this, the more I wanted to do back for them because they made me feel good. Then, emotional content. SparkToro are amazing at building a parasocial relationship. The examples here are a screenshot from their office hours. They are so real in that one. They stumble over their words, they interrupt each other, they say little anecdotes from their personal lives, like nothing extreme, like like revealing, of course, but still, you get a sense of what they're like as people. You get a sense of their sense of humor. And those chats, those live chats, are incredible. Everybody's cracking jokes. There are people who know each other, right? When I open SparkToro's office hours, there are people who say hi to me. There are people I say hi to because I've seen their names so many times, right? I've connected with people because we met in their office hours that I've now met in person and done huge collaborations with. I just did a webinar with somebody who I met in their office hours months ago, right? So that builds a relationship with me and the other customers, as well as with the brand itself, because the brand is what brought me there. That's how you build a true community, right? There's this emotional warmth to it. Then they post some things that are pretty personal as well. That's a photo from a blog post announcing that they were hiring that VP of marketing, and that's the founder, the VP of marketing, and his wife, like the founder's wife, right? Like a lot of brands would not post something like that. But they did, which, reading that as a customer made me feel like I knew them. It made me feel a little bit like, oh, these are really lovely, warm people. I want to get to know them more. I want to connect with them more, right? And the last screenshot here are like screenshots of the chat from an online event that they did last year. And that chat had, I think, 3,000 plus messages sent in it, which were mostly very, very happy. People were cracking jokes. They were saying how much they loved it. They were quoting the speakers. People were talking about that event for days. In fact, somebody made a whole artwork of every single speaker, like the day after that event, because it felt like they were listening, because it felt like every speaker wanted to talk to us. And there was this sense of warm, emotional community. It felt like we were making friends, right? And then the last one is for the most intense and the most super fans, which I would say I probably am for SparkToro, right? When I started doing things for them, they've started promoting me. They've started helping me in my career. So as you see, there is a screenshot from one of their newsletters, which was a packet of resources I put together after their online conference, which they shared to their thousands of subscribers. Then another one is an old screenshot, which was after I explained their product to somebody else on Twitter. That person tagged them, and they came in offering me help, right? Anything we can do to help or amplify, just let us know. And I knew that they would, and they have. They started reading content I was posting that wasn't even related to them. That last screenshot is Rand promoting me to 500,000 of his Twitter followers just because he read a thing that I posted that wasn't even about his product. When I saw this, my first reaction was, how can I thank him? What can I do for him? That was why I started thinking of the guides, right? Because it's all about reciprocity. When you do something for people, they want to do something back for you, right? And that's how you get really tied up with them. It feels like your efforts will not be wasted, right, as a fan, which means as a brand, you need to make sure that people feel like they'll be heard, like they'll be accepted, like you actually really care about what they have to say. And does this work? Yes. Before I show you the numbers, know that by the time I wrote these guides, I didn't really have much of a following. I just hit 1,000 followers on LinkedIn at the time, 700 of which I knew from college. And I think I had about 200 followers on my Mastodon, and my website traffic was pretty low. So this is now a screenshot of my I have skipped the guides. We're going to skip this. This is a screenshot from my website, of my website traffic just for the SparkToro guides that I wrote. That is nearly 2,000 views on a website that I think maybe got 2,000 views in all of 2022. I have now experienced a 450% increase in my website traffic so far for 2022 as compared to so far for 2023 as compared to all of 2022, right? My website has grown now. Now that when I post things that are not even about SparkToro, I get people looking at them because they grew my traffic so much, because they bumped me up in SEO rankings, because they got me a following. I now have nearly 2,000 people following me on LinkedIn and 2,500 following me on Mastodon, right? And none of that happened before the guides. I think I got 500 or 700 followers just in the week after I published them, right? And again, for SparkToro, every single view here is somebody reading about their product. And they didn't have to write this content. They didn't have to spend any time making this. I just did it for them, right? That's 1,000 unique users reading about their product on a customer's site and learning about it and going back. Most people were looking at more than one page. The average engagement time is 1 minute. People were actually scrolling, right? People were actually reading these things all the way through. I've seen people come back. I've seen user logs that go every single one of these guides over multiple months, right? And again, they didn't have to invest a single cent or ask me to do this. I just did it because I loved their brand and I loved what they did for me. Then these are some of my LinkedIn posts that were about the guides, right? So again, thousands of people have seen this. They have seen the mention of this brand. They have seen it mentioned by a customer excitedly saying how much she loves their brand, right? Even the people that might have not clicked on the guides or engaged with these posts, they saw this and they probably remembered it. And next time when they saw the name SparkToro, they probably thought, wait, isn't that brand that that girl liked so much that she wrote all of those guides about it, right? I've had people come up to me and ask me, why do you love it so much? And then I would talk them through. And I've had people come back to me and say they made a purchase because of me, right? They were following these people for months or years, and they never actually bothered to check out the product. But when they saw how passionate I was and how sincere, even though I'm not affiliated with them, that's when they went. That's when they checked it out. That's when they bought it, right? And people pay for LinkedIn engagement like this, right? 30 reactions, a bunch of comments, a bunch of reposts, a bunch of people posting links on their own, right? Conversations starting. People were just talking about SparkToro for weeks afterwards. They were talking about the product. I saw for the first time on LinkedIn, people talking about their product every day. People were just tagging them, describing how much they like their product. That had never happened before. And it started happening in the weeks after I published these guides. And here's more. Rand, the founder, he was reposting them and explaining that I was a fan, that I just happened to do it and promoting them as well. Again, I don't have access to his impressions, except for Twitter, but this is people reacting. There's hundreds of engagements on these things across all the posts. There's thousands of impressions. That's so much brand awareness. That's so much opportunity to show how much somebody cares about your brand, right? No budget. Nobody predicted this. And then this is from their analytics. Rand gave me access to SparkToro's Google Analytics the other day. And if you see, this is their referral traffic. There's 1,636 websites here that sent them traffic in the past year. I think this was from April 1st. And I'm number 53. My website that before I did these guides had like 2,000 views ever. Right? And I'm number 53. I sent them 44 people that directly clicked on a link on my blog to go to their website. And if you look at this further, their engagement time is 7 minutes and 33 seconds for average engagement time, right? And even better, as you can see, 9 people went from my website to theirs and created an account. I also saw in their analytics, I couldn't get a screenshot of that one, that at least one person just went and bought the product that day. Right? And how many more are there that I can't even attribute? We know in B2B, right? There's so many touch points, the sales cycles are longer. There were probably many people that read the guides and bought it another day that wouldn't show up here. I would honestly expect this to be at least 10 times higher, if not more, because if you think about the ripple effect from other people talking about SparkToro because of my guides to the other people that they know, posting to their audiences, interacting with their companies, I probably got them hundreds, if not thousands, of views, right? Directly and indirectly. So this works, this matters. And it's way more powerful than if they were posting about it. It's way more powerful than if they did a sponsorship somewhere, because you know when you see a sponsorship, right? This was sincere, this was genuine, and it was because they invested into me. And so whenever I invested back into them, it came back, right? They've helped me. They've made me a bunch of money now too, right? Because people come in and they ask me, they say, I saw your SparkToro guides, could you help us with this? I'm a consultant. I've now introduced a full-on SparkToro consulting here. So people look up SparkToro, they see that we offer these services. So if they don't want to figure out how to learn it themselves, they come to me. And again, there's a reciprocal relationship, right? So many times, if you help your customers with their own businesses, they will help you with yours, right? And the flywheel just keeps spinning. So this is my little takeaway, and I don't know how to click on the audio. Could you click on the audio for me? You get 100 Mariyas out there, and you know that you're starting to make a difference, right? You get 1,000 Mariyas out there, something's actually going to happen. It's a movement. My point with this silly snippet from the podcast that I was on is I'm just one person. I'm one person that didn't have a budget for any of this. I'm one person that didn't even have a platform back then, right? Imagine if you had 10 of me. Imagine if you had 100 customers like me that loved you this much, that wanted to make things for you that much with that much passion. And now, imagine if you had 1,000. I think that will show in your numbers whether you're a tiny startup or a giant enterprise, right? So we're basically done, and I would like to ask you right now, think through, if you have something to write it down, please write. Think of 3 people or companies that you can reach out to who are either your fans or could help you find your fans, who are collaborators, partners, most passionate customers that you could reach out to now to start this feedback cycle. I'm going to give you a few seconds. And if you want, you might start thinking through, what would you reach out to them for? What could you do for them? How can you help them feel like you're invested in their success so that they can be invested in yours? All right. You can keep writing if you want, but I'm going to switch the slide because this is a link to the resource packet for all of you that now doesn't show up properly. It's kalynamarketing.com/B2BSMX, the name of the conference, and it's all lowercase. So yeah, kalynamarketing.com/B2BSMX. There's a list of resources, including the graphics that I included, like the marketing flywheel and the 4 quadrants. And then there's a list of resources to check out the work of other people that talk about this, as well as the companies I talked about, and examples of the content that I made for SparkToro that you can check out yourself to get a vision of what could your customers do if you made them into superfans. Thank you.
All right, that was an incredible love story. Thank you so much, Mariya. Let's give it up for her one more time. All right, we have about 15 minutes until our next